Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central and sort of the quantum campfire all at the same time. In case you hadn't guessed, the gal in the striped socks and the quantum campfire is BC Rieger. And also I'm joined by my good friend Lisa Flamino Rush. So wow, bees, cool little gadget you got going on there.
Yeah, we're testing it out for the quantum campfire. So.
Yeah, and look at all that quantum energy coming from the quantum fireplace.
Yeah.
And the Rose Kitty has come to join us. She's decided she wants to
bathing in it.
Conversation. And Keegan is over in the corner over here in his sling camping bed, so he's enjoying it.
That's awesome.
Out in the hammock.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Well, in case I didn't know, and I know I didn't say it actually, today is Friday, September the 28th, 2018. And, we're going to talk about something really cool, I think, and actually rather timely in a couple of ways. We're going to talk about, actually, I think we already have a title for this one. Woe is me. The woe is me meme frequency energetic is absolutely no longer supported. And I know I really feel like that's true. And I feel like it's playing itself out on a public stage right now.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Right.
Caricature. But it's not the only game in town, of course, because, there's still a lot of the, well, for me, woe is me also screams victim mentality consciousness too. And I can say that because I've been in that mindset, and
why
it's not a mind
to me. Why are they doing this to me? Nobody understands.
Yeah, but I didn't ask for this. Right. And yeah, I didn't do that. And now I have to suffer this consequence. Right. And I believe me, I can say this because, I was squarely in that consciousness center for quite some time, actually.
You were square dancing there 5 days a week?
Actually, I lived it 24/7 through two husbands that were quite abusive, which I'm very clear I kept myself in that situation. Right. So, yeah, I mean, this is a frequential neighborhood that, I have been very familiar with in my life. So,
one thing I'd like to start playing with in this is to take the second part of the title. So what does it mean when a certain meme, kind of a bent that people have, a groove, a rut, there's lots of ways to use it, or frequency energetic is no longer supported? What is that? Or absolutely, that's that's a cap on that one. But what's when it's no longer supported? So let's play with that for a minute, and then actually I think that will explain a lot of stuff for us. So what's the picture or the sense that comes up for each of you when we talk about this? Oh, and I'll just have a programming note. The reason that I'm not on camera, except for these are my off work socks. So when these go on, I'm not at work anymore. The reason that's the only thing on camera and Rose is taking up the rest of the camera and the fire is I'm really enjoying just hanging out on my porch looking at this fire, and I spent about 15 minutes trying to see if I could rig a camera angle that I could get both in, and short of me sitting on the floor too. It wasn't going to work. So this way, Lisa and Sheila and everybody else gets to enjoy the quantum campfire, and I do too. And
And look at it. It's beautiful.
So, anyways, all right. So what are the pictures that come to you guys, and we'll play starting there.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind, of course, is what's playing out on the world stage. Of course, you know
No, but I don't mean going into that. I'm talking about what does it mean when you can fill in the blank of, you know, this is the woe is me meme frequency energetic is
right.
absolutely no longer supported. So that could be blank meme energetic. What does it mean? What are you seeing? What do you sense? What's the picture that comes to you of the fact that a particular frequency energetic is no longer supported? Let's just take that for a moment, because I think that would be very valuable.
Well, no longer supported. That's pretty clear to me. It's no longer supported. So if a person is in a particular energetic, doesn't matter what it is, and it's no longer supported, then it feels like it's going to blow up, or it's just whatever that it is that is not supported will just not work for that
Right.
person.
Right.
It's not going to work for that entire energetic, anyone that's trying to live in that frequential neighborhood. For me, that feels like, when I feel into what that statement means, it's like, it's just not going to work. Whatever mindset that or energetic, it's going to backfire and blow up in one's face, is what it feels like.
Yep.
Because especially if the word absolutely is on the front end.
Right. Right. Well, and it's funny because that came in as right before we went on camera, that needed to be added. So,
well, and quite frankly, when you added it, this is the funny thing for me, because I already had the title written down. I wrote it in all caps. So the energetic that came through you,
right.
when that came through your soul, through you to me, came out in all caps in my handwriting.
So Lisa, for a minute, what's the sense that comes? I just want to kind of get three different of us on saying, then we can play with it, because I know I heard a couple of people say, well, I don't know what that means, and are there consequences, and anyway, so I think this is a good place to start.
It's calling to my mind kind of situation I'm having with my phone.
Wait, now your microphone is not
it's
working.
really bad.
Okay, how is it now?
Better.
A little better, yeah.
Okay.
Speak up.
Okay, so I was thinking of it in terms of the thank you for that. Well, okay, hold on now. I lost it because you couldn't hear me. Okay. I thought of a metaphor for that. My phone. Okay, so I have a Note 3. And so I'd like it to keep going, but it doesn't want to. Anyway, what happens with the older technology when you withdraw support is you can't expand. You can't grow. You can't get on with the new stuff that you want to do because the platform has been outgrown. So that came to my mind when you were saying that.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good one.
That's a really good, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a great metaphor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably not one person out there that can't relate to the fact.
Well, I'm just currently experiencing it, so it was the one thing I kept seeing. She was like,
yeah, okay.
Well, not only is it a metaphor, but it's a word picture, and it's really, it's as far as making it really easy to grok, it's irrefutable, because whether it's a phone or anything else, we've all had that experience. We haven't wanted to have that experience. We've tried to avoid having
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Right? We've tried to kind of worm around, fix it around, have it come on a stopgap around, yeah. I will add on this that that the absolutely no longer supported is absolutely true. You'll see empirical data instantly with it. And unlike, the phone or other pieces of technology that is made, obsolete by design very quickly,
Right.
this is actually a really amazingly wonderful thing. It's you could look at it as it's a codex that is not only in the energies coming in right this minute, but it is a codex that we each individually have decoded, uncoded within us. You could say in other ways is that we've tripped the wire. We hit a tripwire for this to start this up, to have this come into being.
Event-driven activation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, except that it's on a very personal, individual level.
Yeah.
So
The event is your frequency.
Yes, and so many beings have hit this tripwire threshold a long, long time ago. Now, if there were some who were managing to, fix it or just get by or kind of, pull out the linear.
Duct tape and
Yes,
super
that's exactly what I was trying to get at. Duct tape. Gaffer's tape was the way I grew up calling it.
I'm from the South, and let me just say that everything can be fixed with duct tape.
Yeah, well, I grew up in television, so gaffers for the sound gaffer, the guy who holds the boom for the mic. That's gaffer's tape. So, anyways, that's no longer working, and it's wholesale. Regardless, that's no longer working, and actually, that's another conversation thought that's coming in right now. But it ties into the schemes and shenanigans and kind of next playbook or next play in the playbook being tried is no longer working either. But we'll leave that to another conversation. So anyways, this is unlike frustrating with a phone. Well, maybe that's not fair. I was going to say, unlike frustrating with a phone or another piece of technology, that it's no longer supported and you finally have to just, bite the bullet or throw in the towel and go with it. And this is, like I said, it's actually a wondrous thing. Unless, of course, you're really ensconced in the meme of, woe is me, or Sheila rattled off a bunch of other ones similar to that, I've been done wrong, and, the whole 9 yards. That because it's a habit. In fact, what you've done is it's erroneous and it's false and it's something that's really smoke and mirrors, but you've created your identity around it.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say that's an easy pattern or groove, if you will, to fall into. Mm-hmm. Or to jump into in my case. And so yeah, so it can not going to sugarcoat the fact that it was terrifying at first when I realized that I had put myself in these positions, that it was my choices and my actions that not just and got me there to begin with, but kept me there and not just the first time, but jumped right into the second, from the frying pan into the fire thing, because, I lost my identity
Right.
the first time when he left. So you see, it is when you talked about the identity part, and then a person thinks that is their lot, or that is who I am, and this is how it goes, and it's just not. And so what that's going to look like, since it's no longer supportive, luckily for me, I was able to pull myself for the most part out of all of that before it was no longer supported. So when you asked that question, I thought, wow, I don't even know how, because but that's why I loved what you said, Lisa, about if the platform's not there. So now on to the next part of that, BZ. Again, we kind of see where some awake folks are seeing this whole victim thing that's playing out on the big stage up there in Capitol Hill. Folks are seeing that for what it is, at least most, I would say. So now that's absolutely not supported.
Yeah, and what's coming is that it's okay. I will say it then. I was gonna say, and then I was gonna change how I say it. It's a coming to Jesus moment.
That's so funny.
And
because what I got was a wailing and gnashing of teeth as well. So that's so funny that wow, that's interesting.
And what is going on is not will happen. It's happening right now all over the place in little ways and big ways, depending on, what part of that meme you're trying to push out there. And is it a small section or a big section, or, is it one particular area that's been going on, and, you're just keeping on that. But think of when you walk into your house, you've driven up, you haven't been home, you drive up, and it's daylight, we'll just say, and you're not paying attention, so you're not really noticing and tuned into your surroundings. And you walk in the house, and you want to get home and start something right away, and you go in and you go to turn, and you realize that the power is out. And it's simply not going to work. Whatever it was, maybe you were going to cook dinner, you were going to turn on the TV, whatever it was, it just stops you right in your tracks, and it's not going to work. You can, you can hop up and down all you want. You can pick up the start swinging the bat of, the meme, whatever that particular one is for you around this energy frequencies. And it's futile, because there's not even anything there to wail and gnash the teeth against, because it simply has dematerialized. So it's like all of a sudden you're doing a martial arts move, and the opponent in this case is the frequency energetic not being supported. So that, the rug is pulled out, the platform is gone. You can use all sorts of metaphors for it. And there's nothing to wail. The wall isn't even there. So there is no wailing wall to wall against. There's no gnashing teeth to gnash against, because actually it's a soft, the energy frequency that you encounter when this happens, and when it's, and they happen in very seminal moments. I mean, they are, you may describe it differently than I'm describing when it occurs, but it's unmistakable, the change that has crystallized right in front of you. Because it's not a hard stop. It's actually where, for the very first time in some instances, you are noticing the flow of the energy that's coming from with you out, and how it is then interacting with all of the other things in your environment. So that could be in your physical environment, could be lots of different ways. So what I'm trying to get at is that there's no resistance, there's no wall, unlike with the example with the power is out. Okay, you go, oh well, that's not going to work. There is such flow and give and compassion, which may seem funny in an inanimate, or if you're you're not per se talking to someone, but in the energetic of that on the one hand, it's unmistakable that it no longer is supported, and it simply doesn't work. So that's why I had the analogy or the metaphor of the power not going on, or Lisa's metaphor of the phone and or the computer, the platform simply doesn't work. So that program won't show up, or the phone just won't turn on. But unlike those where it's kind of like a hard wall, in your face, like, well, but I have to make this phone call, or I have to check Facebook or whatever it is. This one, from the energetic level, is very different. It is unmistakable. It is immovable in the sense that no matter the teeth gnashing or cajoling or whatever, can you get it to come back into play again? But on all the other senses, it is incredibly flowing. It is incredibly compassionate. And if there is a moment where you have that WTF, why isn't this working kind of a thing, it's really just it's almost like a glimpse, a blip, and then you're in a new space. So another way to say it is that when you orchestrated so that you come to this intersection of this, and you may do this repeatedly for a bit, you are creating this compassion and this absoluteness at the same time. You have, in essence, collapsed the timelines that came before this, that all modeled, encouraged, carried more of it forth, so enhanced and gave more richness and complexity to whatever this mean that for you in this moment is the example. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does. And when I said wailing and gnashing of teeth, it was I got to do this, I need to do that. And it's, like you do when you first come home and find that the power's not on, and
right.
And you got to cook dinner and all that. But yeah, this actually applies, because I was applying it to myself, of course, as I do everything. And it leads right into the next video, actually. How do I change my frequential neighborhood?
Right.
Because we were talking about that a bit, before this particular one.
Well, this one is that's one of the reasons that, well, there's lots of reasons why they're two different conversations, but this one, it's this particular energetic frequency. So this particular kinds of memes that you can describe some of that are slightly they're in the same groove. They just have maybe a little bit a slightly different trajectory. So as I said, the woe is me, I've been done wrong, or victimhood, or the total not owning up to your playing the starring role and the producer, director, writer role in you could be in everything or in this one particular groove that's coming up. So the other ones and that we'll talk about later can be slightly different, but this particular one is so not all of them, but and that may come very quickly here, but right now this particular one simply doesn't work. It's as definite as the power is out. So nothing that requires power will work anymore. But what I'm saying is that what's really cool about it is that it has, when one is faced with it and immersed in it and cannot look away from it, has no other choice because there is no other choice. It has a completely different quality than one might think that something like that would. Because, okay, well, that's an interesting way to put it. Because and depending on the being, some it will be it'll come in and it'll lock right in instantly, and some they'll feel it, sense it, experience it, and they may have to they may call it forth a couple more times in slightly different ways to lock it in. But what you experience is, because you've collapsed those times, is like they never existed. And it's just an echo of the habit that is there. And when you realize that they're the usual things that you would do or that would flow into that, or the supportive nature actually of this, it's a negative energetic habit, aren't there anymore, because it's like it's been completely, well, it's not like it has been completely erased from your field, your experience. It's been collapsed.
That's very interesting in the way that you're sharing that in that way. For me, as someone who has been a victim of rape, okay, it's an experience that I've had. For me personally, I knew then that it was actually more like a choice. Yes, it was a forced issue, but it was also very much for me a choice in the situation that I actually controlled the entire situation. I had a child in the next room that could actually see me. I controlled the entire thing. Now, when it first happened, I didn't exactly, I held it that way, but I didn't hold it that way. I don't know how to explain that, because
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Okay. So, but later on, as I was integrating and dealing with all of that, over the years, I've come to see, really in the last 3, that experience translated to other things for me, in that knowing that I was in charge of how that all went down. It doesn't change what went down, but I know that I handled that. I allowed it for specific reasons, because believe you me, I could have killed that motherfucker and I wanted to. But so it also helped me see that and I'm hoping that as this energetic is no longer supported, and I feel like it will translate for others too, that coming to view it or hold it in a different light for me was very empowering.
Yes.
Because I was no longer, this victim. I controlled that situation. I handled all of that. And just saying that out loud right now to everybody, I can tell you the energy that's running through this body right now is huge. And it translates over to every single other thing.
Right.
In that kind of a mindset. I mean, it really does. It did for me. And perhaps, that since this is no longer supported, I really enjoyed Jeannie's Jeannie's sharing the other night in regards to the program that she felt may have been removed from her head.
Right.
Because I think that's happening all across the board.
Yes.
Perhaps that's why that's no longer supported to begin with at all.
Yes.
And so it's like you were saying, it's more like an echo as someone's still, I got a good now. Oh, this just in. Okay, it's like somebody who has this, ingrained thing that, like, gotta make the donuts. And then something happens, they die, and their ghost shows up. I gotta make the donut. Because it's a groove.
Right.
But because that's not supported anymore, there might be a little jostling around as you try to look for that new groove, I guess.
Yeah, and so that would be one, but that's definitely one way that it materializes for people, that they experience it, and especially those who are really stuck on it, who are just the absolute savant at being in that woe is me. It, for many others, it's like someone had just made donuts and you can still smell, or there's warm donuts in a box and you can smell the smell of them, whether you think that's a great smell or a bad smell, it doesn't matter, you still smell it. And then, it dissipates. Either people eat the donuts because they just dematerialize in this case, or once they cool, they don't give off the same aroma. And what's really cool is that it has a cascading effect, just like you talked about, Sheila, where it cascades and flows and suffuses all of the other similar memes, energetic frequencies within you that are not of an expansive nature, right? But not locked on the not locked on the one that's no longer supported. So that in itself is you changing, cleaning out, clearing out, integrating, and doing a flood of work in a really effortless way in those other energetic frequencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. To me.
So my sense with this was just to do a short one on this, just to bring it through, because people are realizing it in different ways, and they kind of are in that, it makes me think of Lisa was talking about in a couple of videos ago. She said, I've done that where I've, interrupted myself when I was thinking of something more expansive, and no, hang on, I'm busy over here. Ensconced in this negative chatter. I don't remember the example you were giving, but it's very much like that. And they look around. It's like, they're trying to find. You drop something on the floor, and you're kind of patting the floor to see if you can find it, and they're realizing that it's simply not there anymore. And since it's been a collapse, since it is a collapsed timeline, it's a collapsed energetic frequency in your patterning, that's when it takes on the character very quickly of there's a fragrance for a moment that you smell, and then it dissipates and you don't experience it anymore.
Well, I know that, there's something that came in, and it'll just make this conversation that much longer, but any ideas of what this collapsing energetic is going to look like?
In the out there?
Yeah, I guess that's my question, because, because that's why I said there's going to be this bouncing around looking, the way I'm feeling it is that if the groove isn't there anymore and you're used to the groove.
Well, a couple of ways that it shows up did you want to say something, Lisa?
No. I'm listening.
A couple of ways that there's a myriad of ways that it shows up. A couple of ways that it shows up were illuminating for me today, because there were different beings that I was near. And, you get used to different, even if you don't know them all that well, or, aren't super tight friends or something, they're working and whatever, or you're around them fairly often, like, this is the same checkout person in the grocery store and that kind of stuff. So, and they have a certain rhythm in how they do things, and especially if this particular energetic was it's been a favorite of theirs and a habit, and the conversations, even if they're very shallow conversations, always seem to start and have the middle and then the end. That's similar way. But I'm
sorry, but I heard Eeyore in my head just then. I'm okay.
Right.
Don't worry about me. Just sit over here and eat worms.
Right. And so one of the things I noticed today from a bunch of different beings in very different scenarios, and each being very different in as far as their psychographics, demographics, all that kind of stuff.
We're losing your microphone, BZ.
No, this is a brand new microphone. It is not allowed to do that. Pay attention. Okay, the microphone, not anybody else. Is that
I don't think it liked that at all.
It can't hear me out? Come on.
Yeah, a little bit.
Why is it doing that?
I don't know. I think it's our energy. I don't know. It's so weird, because it happens to my microphone sometimes, it happens to Lisa's sometimes it happens to yours.
It's super duper.
Oh, that's a nice one, yeah.
Anyways, it looks like a spaceship.
It really doesn't work.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Well, yeah, a little bit.
Um, so one of the things that happens, and I noticed it from 4 different beings encounters today, is that you could say they completely blanked for a moment. They completely, you could describe it as they completely forgot what they were going to say, or they completely blanked, or they were searching for a word maybe, and it wasn't coming to them. And then they also realized that they never were searching for the word at the same time, if that makes any sense. So if you have maybe a minute of audio, and in the audio there is a space where there is no audible audio. Let's see how this metaphor works. So you're playing it. So there is a space where there's no audible audio, yet the thing that would have come, that would naturally flow from what would have been in that thought or in that segment of the audio, it completely disappears. And this is what I'm saying, because the timeline has actually collapsed, the habit doesn't exist anymore. So it's not like you had a habit and you stopped doing it, but you can remember the habit, or people can remember your habit. Because the timeline jumping and the collapse of it, which is a way to say similar in a simplified way, it's a way to say the same thing, similar thing. It isn't even there to think about, to have the habit in the groove. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I haven't experienced that in my own reality yet, but that's interesting. And
maybe we have and we don't know.
What?
I'm sorry, say that again, please. What did you say?
Maybe we have and we just don't know.
Oh, well, you might be right.
Gone now.
Well, but okay, so this is interesting though.
No, actually, that's very interesting, Lisa, because when you said that, I'm flashing back to these different times today.
Yes.
And they noticed the pause of, what they were going to say was there, and what it was. They noticed the pause, let's say. I'm trying to break it back, piece it out. But when they started again, maybe this might be the way to create a visual. When they started again, they didn't have a recognition of the pause, and because these individuals are ones where, for me as an observer, right, as noticing the flow, the pattern, the habit, okay, they're going to drive down this road again now from the energetics, and we're going to go here and here and here and here, and then we'll finish up with there, because this is, they weren't even on that road when the pause ended, and it was just momentarily. They weren't even on that road. Does that make sense?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to give it back to you in my vernacular, so I can make sure to see if I understood you. Okay, we're going to take a scenario. Let's just say with my grandmother. Let's just say, okay, let's pretend it was my grandmother, and my interactions with my grandmother always started with, well, my sciatica's hurting, and the doctor over there, and the guy down the street, and this is where my take on your energetic goes down one road and then down the other, and it always ends up with the woe is me energetic.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that in this particular conversation, this is the energetic that's usually presented, and maybe in the beginning of the conversation, there was a pause as though they were going to head down that road,
Right. And they
and
forgot
the
what they were
road
going to,
wasn't there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you know how sometimes you go in the house, you go to get something and you forgot what it was you go to get?
Right.
Okay. So it's, take that and put it in this example. So it's a momentary pause. And when they start up again, if you're looking at them, you can see metaphorically that they're on a different street than they were prior to the pause. So if they were in the sciatica, woe is me, was the, right? They weren't in that lane. They weren't on that street anymore. And when they, to use the same street metaphor, so when they hit the gas and they started talking again, or they started their conversation, their interaction with you again fully, it was on a different track. Now, not all of the ones today were dramatic in that they went from the sciatica to the life is marvelous and I'm flying on rainbows, but for these beings they were definitely a couple streets over. That makes sense.
Yeah, so they made it out of that particular frequential neighborhood, at least by a street or two.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. They didn't just make it out of the neighborhood, because in this essence it's a groove, because it's a very well-worn energetic path meme. It
Right.
was no longer there. So the reason I know it's important to highlight that is because if they simply just made it out of the neighborhood, then they can just hang a Yui and go right back to the neighborhood. But
yeah, but if as they
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if as they left out of the neighborhood, as we just said, it's no longer there. It collapsed. There is no Yui.
That's correct.
So they forgot. Maybe, is that what? Because that's what Lisa was saying. Maybe we forgot.
It could be because but it's not actually forgetting, because it was never there in the first place.
Right.
That you experienced.
Right.
So back to, this is why Jeannie's example, where the program, the file, right, was pulled out of her head. And she actually, we've been in communication since, and I'm hoping she'll write something up and put it on the IV, or maybe we'll record it. But she had some big things occur for her with that quantum campfire energetic envelope. But so in other words, it did exactly what the whole, I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it. The vision and the thought behind the creation of that and rolling it out so that others can come and play and all that kind of stuff, is, aside from being fun and expansive and all that kind of stuff and playing with it, but it also has the way that it was given and co-created with me by me, has an intention to that, and this is part of what that is. So I just want to, since we're talking about this with Jeannie, I'll just say that for a minute. It'll make more sense as more people come and play, around it, and others share that. And I have a sense too, because I haven't read the whole text Nicholas sent me, but because it came in just before we started this. But my sense is that something similar, he experienced something similar as well. Similar in his own frame. But to go back to this with the, so Okay, this is a kind of, it's going to seem like a left field analogy metaphor, but maybe it'll work. So I sliced my thumb right here, and it was a very deep slice. So if I was going straight in the pad, it went all the way up to here. So it was maybe that deep in, and the whole thing was up, and it was, 3/4 of the thumb. Okay. Yet if you look at and it happened for very specific reasons that had to do with my energy going into the laughingly called healing center, urgent care, whatever, and the encountering the 5 beings, 2 were lead doctors. Anyway, it was a whole other thing. So I know why it happened. And when I got in there was this whole thing, and already it had only been 2 days, and it was already healing, because they just, when they unwrapped the finger, they expected, okay, well, you can't move your hand, and it's going to be a mess, and it's gangrene and all this. And holding my thumb, they said, well, where is it? Not the thumb, but the the thing. And so I bring that up because there's no scars, there's no differentiation, there's no even glitches in the whorls in the fingerprint on it, nothing to the extent of what this should have done. And I've got EMTs and paramedics and all that kind of stuff who looked at it, who saw it right when it, like 20 minutes after I did it, and they bandaged it up, and they said, no, you got to go. And I said, well, whatever. But the point is that it's not there anymore. So this, what I'm talking about, that groove, that mean, that energetic frequency of this, the woe is me, and people have so other ways to describe it. When you're the next time, because this shift and up leveling has, for lack of a nonlinear way to describe it, has now flown in, that it's absolutely no longer supported. It's the same thing. So before, it could have been the cut thumb, and it didn't magically heal, and there's you can see where the stitches were, you can see the line, or there's a scar, or anytime you've done something that you see, oh yeah, that's where I did this, or that's this one here, and it's as clean and pristine as it was, because not only do you not remember, but it has been collapsed. Another probably better way to characterize it, has dematerialized from your field, your frequency, your signature. And some may have lots of different, think of a big hank of braided rope, like hemp or something, that's very strong, but it has lots of fibers in the threads of the rope. And so some who have, like I said, are aficionados, or really were the superstars in doing this mean to the nines, may, unless they make a conscious choice, they may need to do this a bunch of times to collapse them all. And many can, it would be a combination of things. You could say many can just do it once or twice, and it completely collapses them all. And some will notice what they're doing. They'll notice, because they're noticing, they're aware, they're working on this, they're 100% committed, and they're doing this. And not only can they collapse it in one shot, but remember I talked about the next thing that people encounter is that it then, that change, so the pulling that program out of your head, the file out of your head, the totally erasing it from the whiteboard, so it's as if it wasn't there, or the thumb, so as if there was no serious injury, right, is totally dematerializes. And when you notice that, and you cognize the expansion that occurs from that, you have a cascading effect that flows into similar memes and energetic frequencies within you.
Right, that are no longer, well, that are not in your highest aligned.
That's right. But may not be in the set of frequencies that are absolutely no longer supported.
Right.
They're not on the list yet. They may they may be really quick on the list, which hasn't been, metaphorically published yet, but yeah.
Well, I feel like this is the end of this particular frequential and energetic envelope, because I really feel like the next one I think it really leads into the very next one.
Yeah.
In regards to how to change your frequency neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, do you have anything you'd like to add to this particular envelope before we close?
No, not really.
If we could just hear your microphone, we'd be good.
I always say that. But I'm really looking forward to the next conversation. Yeah, I wanna, and also I'm ready to get excited about what is being supported right now too. Yeah.
Wait,
say that again.
There's what is being supported right now, because there's so much to move forward to. Yeah, that's what I'm excited about. Here we go.
Yes, absolutely. So we will have.
We can hear her. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we could hear on that part. It was this ho hum stuff we didn't hear.
Oh, sorry.
No, I think
no. It's actually a perfect example. It's actually, for me, it's a perfect example. Actually,
it's a perfect
because that is what is supported. Woohoo!
Right. Yeah.
That's what's supported. That's why we carry you so good. That's part of it anyway. That's what happened.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we will definitely have, all the usual things in all the usual places. And, please feel free to comment and or contact, me by email if you'd like. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to add to this, you want to anything at all. So reach out to us if you'd like. And till next time. Mwah.
Much love.
Wait.